My parents skipped my wedding because I married before my perfect sister. Now their perfect family image is finally crumbling. Before watching the video, I ask you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and write any comment. The most interesting comment will be included in the next videos. Thank you to each of you. Enjoy watching. I'm Lola, 28, female, and for as long as I can remember, I've lived in the shadow of my sister Emily, 30. If you ask my parents, they'd say she was their miracle child. Striking, brilliant, magnetic. Everything about her was celebrated like she was born to shine. Meanwhile, I was there, present, but never spotlighted. I worked hard. I accomplished things, but my milestones were either ignored or treated like footnotes in Emily's highlight reel. When Emily graduated law school, my parents threw her a catered party with champagne and live music. When I graduated with honors in biology, my mom patted my hand and said, "That's nice, honey. Did you see Emily's article in the paper?" Like clockwork. My entire life was a series of polite acknowledgments followed by breathless celebrations of my sister. Even the small things came battlefields of comparison. My dad once stood at the kitchen counter looking at Emily like she'd cured cancer, just for getting a promotion, then turned to me and said, "Maybe if you smiled more, people would notice you." I was 15. 15. That kind of stuff sticks to your ribs in ways you don't shake off. And Emily knew it. God, she thrived on it. She'd lean into that golden child status with a subtle smugness that drove me insane. Like when she'd say, "Mom and Dad just worry about you, Lola. They don't want you to be bitter." Bitter. As if I was born jealous rather than raised starving for scraps of recognition. Still, I kept my head down, played the good daughter. I thought maybe if I worked harder, earned more, checked more boxes, they'd finally see me. I got my degree, built a steady career, met Mark, my now husband, who saw me, really saw me, in a way my family never had. He was the first person who told me I wasn't invisible. But when we got engaged, that invisible weight on my chest turned into a cinder block. I thought stupidly, maybe this would be the thing that shifted the ground. Maybe announcing my wedding would be a moment where my parents lit up for me the way they always had for Emily. Instead, they blinked at me like I'd just told them I was buying new curtains. Barely a smile, no enthusiasm. And then the excuses. The half-interested nods when I asked if they wanted to be involved. The dismissive "we'll see" when I asked if they'd come venue shopping with me. And Emily. She smirked, tilted her head, and said, "Well, Lola, maybe you're just not a big wedding kind of person. That's okay. Not everyone needs a spotlight." I wanted to scream. Not everyone needs a spotlight? Bitch, I've been begging for a candle in the dark my entire life, and I should have known right then, when the first real celebration of my life was coming, they'd find a way to ruin it. Mark tried to convince me not to take their lukewarm reaction personally, but how could I not? Every conversation with my parents felt like walking barefoot over broken glass. Smiles that didn't reach their eyes, questions that weren't really questions, just veiled criticisms. When we toured our first venue, a little vineyard outside the city, I invited Mom. She said she was too busy helping Emily with her condo paperwork. Emily wasn't even moving until summer. Then when I sent pictures of the space, hoping for some validation, Mom replied with a single text. "Nice, but Emily's ballroom will probably photograph better." That was the moment I realized they weren't just indifferent. They were actively tethering my happiness to Emily's shadow. Every choice I made was measured against her like we were in some invisible competition I never agreed to. I kept telling myself, "It's fine. You have Mark. You have his family, and thank God I did. His mom, Linda, practically adopted me into her arms the second I put the ring on. She cried when I asked her to go dress shopping. She hand-wrote calligraphy on our invitations. She made me feel like I was worth celebrating, and for the first time in my life I actually believed it. But the closer the wedding got, the clearer it became that my parents weren't coming. At first they said they never got the invitation. I knew that was a lie. I had the delivery confirmation in a smug little text from Emily saying, "Oh, Lola, maybe double-check your addresses." Then they pivoted to excuses. My dad claimed he couldn't take off work, though I later found out he had plenty of vacation saved for Emily's wedding. Mom said she didn't feel emotionally included. Emily chimed in, of course, with, "Well, Lola, maybe you should have worked harder to make them feel wanted. It's not always about you." That line nearly broke me. Not always about me? It had never once been about me. So when my wedding day finally came, I walked down that aisle with my head held high. No parents, no sister, just Mark's father giving me away, and Linda clutching tissues like her heart might burst. And for the first time in my life, I didn't miss them. I felt lighter, freer, almost like the absence of their love had stopped being a hole and started being a space I could finally fill with something real. But later, when the photos went up, that's when the war began. Mom called me the next morning, voice sharp as glass. "You deliberately excluded us to humiliate this family." Emily chimed in with venom, accusing me of ruining her upcoming wedding out of jealousy. I should have cried. I should have begged for them to understand. But something inside me snapped that day, a thread that had been fraying since childhood. For the first time, I didn't back down. I told them everything. The favoritism, the neglect, the years of being made to feel like I didn't matter. And their answer? "You're imagining things, Lola. Stop being dramatic." That's when I knew they were never going to change. After that phone call, I went numb. I thought maybe, just maybe, saying it out loud, finally naming all the favoritism, would rattle them into some kind of self-awareness. But no. They doubled down, called me dramatic, twisted my wedding into a personal attack on Emily. And that's when Emily took it to another level. She started messaging Mark, my husband, the man who had just married me a week earlier. At first it was subtle, complimenting him on how handsome he looked in the photos, saying things like, "Lola's lucky to have you. I hope she knows that." Mark showed me every message, rolling his eyes, laughing it off. But I saw through it immediately. Emily wasn't complimenting him. She was testing the waters. The second round of messages wasn't so subtle. She wrote, "I just don't want you to feel trapped by Lola's bitterness. She's always been jealous, and I'd hate to see her drag you down the way she tries to drag down everyone else." When Mark read that one out loud to me, we both just sat in silence for a moment. Then he laughed, this sharp, disbelieving laugh, and said, "Your sister really thinks this is going to work on me?" But inside, I wasn't laughing. I felt that familiar sickness in my stomach, the same one I'd had my whole childhood. Watching her weaponize words, knowing my parents would defend her no matter how outrageous she got. Mark didn't give her the reaction she wanted. He texted back, short and blunt, "Emily, I married Lola because I love her. Don't contact me like this again. You'd think that would have shut her down." Instead, it was like lighting a fuse. Emily sent this massive, unhinged rant accusing me of brainwashing him, of being manipulative, of ruining our family's reputation. She even threw in that tired old line, "Lola's always been the lesser daughter, and now she's dragging you into her drama." We sat on the couch reading it together, and instead of crying or spiraling, I started laughing. Really laughing. because for the first time I saw her clearly, not as the golden child, not as this perfect, untouchable favorite, but as a desperate, insecure woman who couldn't stand that someone might actually love me without her permission. It was twisted, but her messages did something years of therapy couldn't. They set me free. I blocked her number. Mark blocked her too. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small in her shadow. I felt strong. But Emily? She didn't take rejection quietly. No. That's when she began unraveling in full view of everyone else. And it was only the beginning of her public meltdown. Blocking Emily should have been the end of it. At least that's what I told myself. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that Emily doesn't do silence. She does spectacle. The first sign came through social media. She posted this long, self-pitying caption under one of her engagement photos. Some people are so bitter they can't celebrate others' joy. Sad when jealousy poisons family, but love always wins. The comments were full of sympathy from her friends, people who didn't know the truth, people who thought I was the monster. I wanted to respond. God, I wanted to. But Mark reminded me, don't feed her, let her bury herself. I thought I could. But then came the rehearsal dinner for her wedding. I wasn't invited, obviously. But that didn't stop her from bringing me up. A cousin sent me shaky cell phone footage later that night. Emily, standing at the head of the table, champagne in hand, made a toast that started normal and then turned vicious. To family, she said sweetly, then paused, eyes glinting. Even the ones who try to ruin your happiness because they can't stand to see you shine. Laughter, applause, a few uncomfortable looks. And then, like she couldn't stop herself, she added, some sisters are just meant to be shadows. And that's okay. Not everyone is built for the spotlight. When I saw the video, I didn't cry. I didn't even get angry. I felt this eerie calm like watching a storm destroy someone else's house. Because for the first time, it wasn't just me noticing the cruelty. The camera panned across the table, and I saw the faces, our aunts, uncles, cousins, registering what she was doing. No more plausible deniability. No more pretending Emily was just spirited. They were seeing it, raw, unfiltered, and then the chaos escalated into the physical. 2 weeks before our wedding, Mark and I came home from grocery shopping to find our mailbox ripped off its post. Just gone. A neighbor told us Emily had shown up earlier, screaming in the driveways, pounding on the door when she thought we were home. When no one answered, she kicked the mailbox until it cracked, then hurled it into the ditch. Mark wanted to call the cops. I stopped him. Not because I didn't want to, but because I wanted to let her spiral. The more she unraveled, the clearer the truth became to everyone else. That night, sitting in our porch, looking at the busted remains of our mailbox, I realized something. Emily wasn't just lashing out because she hated me. She was lashing out because, for the first time, she wasn't in control of the narrative. And she didn't know how to handle it, but I did. And that was the moment I started planning. I didn't sleep that night after the mailbox incident. I sat up with Mark, sipping lukewarm tea, staring at the broken post sticking out of the ground like a gravestone. Something in me had shifted. I'd spent 28 years trying to prove myself to people who were never going to see me. But now I realized I didn't want their approval. I wanted them exposed. And Emily. God, she'd handed me the perfect stage. Her wedding was set to be this grand spectacle. A massive ballroom, hundreds of guests, photographers crawling everywhere. It was her ultimate performance, her crown jewel, the thing my parents had been bragging about for months. Emily's big day. If there was ever a moment to show the world who she really was, It was there. But I wasn't reckless. I knew better than a marching guns blazing. No, I was going to let Emily destroy herself. With a little nudge from me, I started quietly gathering receipts, screenshots of the messages she sent to Mark, the video from the rehearsal dinner toast, photos of my smashed mailbox. I didn't plan to scream or accuse. I planned to show. People believe their eyes more than words. Meanwhile, Emily's harassment didn't stop. She left voicemails calling me pathetic, sent emails to Mark trying to reframe herself as the victim. My parents called too, parroting her lies. Lola, you need to apologize to your sister. This feud is ruining the family. I didn't argue. I just smiled, nodded, and kept collecting proof. The final piece fell into my lap a week before the wedding. A cousin forwarded me a Facebook message Emily had sent to her, begging her not to encourage Lola's bitterness and calling me a desperate hanger-on who married out of spite. The kicker, she added. I can't wait to finally be done with her after my wedding. She won't matter anymore. I read that line over and over, and something almost sweet settled in me. Because Emily thought the wedding would erase me. She didn't realize it would be the stage where I finally existed. So on the morning of her wedding, while my parents fussed over her like she was royalty, I was calm, dressed in a simple navy dress, Mark at my side. We weren't there as guests, we weren't even officially invited, but that didn't match. I had friends, cousins, relatives inside who knew what she'd done, who were waiting for the truth to slip out, and when it did, it wouldn't come from me screaming. It would come from Emily, unraveling under the weight of her own cruelty. I wasn't just going to survive this wedding. I was going to turn it into the day she could never escape. The ballroom looked like one of Emily's Pinterest fever dreams. Gold drapes, a crystal chandelier that cost more than my first car, and a monstrous floral arch that smelled like drowning roses. My parents were everywhere, flitting, fussing, kissing foreheads, playing royalty. Emily was a queen on a throne, made of attention. Seeing them like that felt like watching an old movie in which you used to be an extra. I had a cousin inside, Jenna, who had grown tired of the family theater. She'd promised to sit near the head table and trigger a small, very specific chain of events. Play one of Emily's private messages on speakerphone if Emily started in on me in front of the guests. Jenna was shaking when she slid me the text. If she starts, I'll do it. I can't watch her behave like that anymore. I hugged her like she'd saved me from drowning. Emily didn't start with me. She started with the speech. She stood, glass raised, and began that practiced syrupy talk about family and harmony. She smiled, that same smile I'd seen my whole life, until she let loose a barb about shadows and jealousy, the same lines she'd used at the rehearsal dinner. That was Jenna's cue. From across the room, a phone buzzed. Someone thought it was an accidental ringtone, but Jenna had Q-muted the audio so it played clearly through her Bluetooth speaker. Emily's voice, the real one, unfiltered, spilled over the guests. A voicemail she'd left a week earlier on our cousin's phone, where she raged about me being a parasitic hanger-on, where she bragged about making sure our parents wouldn't go to my wedding, where she admitted she'd told Mark that I was toxic, in hopes he'd drop me. There's this exact moment when you see people unpeel masks. Mouths fell open. The wedding pianist stopped playing mid-aria. Faces that had applauded seconds before went hard. My father's face, which had been warm and smug, drained out like someone had sucked the color from it. Emily's cheeks went white. She lunged toward Jenna's table before anyone could stop her. a physical scramble, heels screeching, flowers and knocked from the centerpieces. She grabbed the phone and smashed it. The sound was obscene in that stunned silence. Then she slapped the nearest bridesmaid, a real shocking slap, the kind you see in movies and never expect in your life. People gasped. Chairs scraped. Security moved in. A cousin tried to pull Emily back. She shoved him into a server cart, and a tray of past appetizers went airborne, the shrimp landing like confetti on satin. Someone called 911. My mother screamed for Emily to stop, to save face, then suddenly clammed up when a handful of relatives stepped forward with screenshots and recordings they'd been sitting on for weeks. The wedding that had been built to canonize Emily as perfect collapsed into chaos. People who texted me privately, the same ones who had sent screenshots of her private cruelty, stood up and walked out with their partners. A bridesmaid unpinned Emily's veil and handed it to my aunt like she was passing a verdict. 2 cousins announced they owed apologies to me for never saying anything before. Others whispered that they could no longer support someone who weaponized family like a tool. My parents retreated into denial at first. Tears, performance, gaslights, but the cracks were obvious. An uncle who'd always cozied up to them pulled his wife aside and said quietly but with steadiness, "We know what she's been doing. We won't help cover it." They walked out in pairs. Someone snapped a picture of my father stuffing a wad of tissues into his pocket and staring at his shoes. Emily's meltdown turned outward into sabotage. She tried to drag Mark into it publicly, standing on a chair, accusing him of being manipulated by me, of ruining her life. Mark, steady as he's been this entire story, climbed down, walked beside me through the crowd, and whispered, "We're leaving." He kissed my hand in front of her and walked me out while 100 eyes followed. Outside, the air tasted like cold metal. A stranger had videotaped Emily's tirade and uploaded it within minutes. Within the hour, her Instagram was full of comments, some cheering, some condemning. Her carefully curated image began to fray in real time. I'd wanted her exposed. I hadn't wanted physical violence. None of us wanted the slap or the smashed phone. But watching her unravel, seeing relatives finally treat their silence as complicity, felt like watching a door finally open after being stuck for years. On the ride home, Mark squeezed my hand. "You okay?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. I let the night sink in, the adrenaline, the vindication, the loss. Then I said quietly, "I'm free." Not because she was ruined, because I finally stopped asking permission to exist. When Melin realized her manipulations weren't working on my husband, she escalated in a way I didn't expect. First it was the late-night texts. Paragraphs accusing me of turning him against his real family, as if she had some claim over him. Then came the sudden phone calls from numbers I didn't recognize, her voice dripping with fake sweetness before launching into screaming fits about how I'd brainwashed him. But it didn't stop with us. One Saturday morning, we walked out to find deep scratches carved into the hood of our car. 3 letters gouged into the paint. Mel. It was so childish, so obvious I almost laughed, until I realized how much rage was behind it. My husband took photos and wanted to call the police, but I begged him to wait. I needed to see how far she'd go. Then came the stunt at his work. She actually showed up at his office, sobbing at the front desk, demanding to speak to her brother-in-law. When security escorted her out, she collapsed on the pavement, screaming like she was being attacked. People filmed it. I saw the videos online within hours. My parents, of course, defended her. "She's just under a lot of stress with the wedding," Mom said when I confronted her. "You don't understand the pressure she's under." As if Melin vandalizing my car and trying to humiliate my husband in public was the natural byproduct of stress. It was surreal, like living in a bad soap opera. But here's the thing, I wasn't breaking anymore. Every tantrum, every manipulative act only made her look worse to the world outside our family bubble. My in-laws, my friends, even distant relatives started reaching out with the same message. We see you. We see what they're doing. One aunt, who'd always been neutral, finally called me and said, "Rebecca, I've kept quiet for years, but I can't anymore. We all knew your parents favored Melin. We all watched it. But this is too far. You don't deserve this." For the first time, I wasn't the one begging to be believed. The evidence was right there, carved into my car, splattered across social media, whispered about in circles I wasn't even part of. And when Melin sent me a final furious text, "You'll regret crossing me. I'll make sure of it." Something in me clicked. I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Because what she didn't know was that I had been keeping receipts. Literal physical proof of every game, every lie, every slight. Years of evidence my family had dismissed, ignored, or twisted back on me, and I was about to use it. By the time Melin sent that last threat, my decision was already made. I wasn't going to fight her with screaming matches or slashed tires. I was going to fight her with the truth. And I had more than enough of it. In the weeks after her wedding meltdowns, I started sending out pieces of what I collected. Screenshots of her messages to Mark, the video of her toast where she called me a shadow, the security footage a friend shared of her thrashing outside Mark's office. I didn't dump it all at once.